we had this luncheon to clarify where we stood as friends, and I explained to her exactly why I thought she was the fakest. And so you don't see the details of that lunch, but there's a 40-minute lunch where we go back and forth, and then towards the end, as we're making up, and she's just kind of like testing me, like, you're gonna cry, and stop crying, and it was kind of like, I have cancer. Like, you see what I'm saying? So the intent of that luncheon was not to tell her I had cancer. It was to put perspective into our relationship. And when you start a luncheon and the person says, you're not going to cry, are you? Nothing good is going to come out of it.
I want to gab. Okay, so today we're gabbing with Guerdy Abraira, one of the stars of the Real Housewives of Miami. Guerdy and I have done an interview before, but more notably, we spent a full day together in Miami back in December during Art Basel as part of an influencer trip with Threads, and we had the best time together. So I'm excited to get some more time with Guerdy to catch up, see how she's feeling that we're deeper into the season. Guerdy, thanks for being here. How are you?
I'm amazing. I'd love to see you, darling. You look amazing.
Thank you. You too. We had the best time together at Mandolin, at Swan. We were
Oh,
eating well.
food.
Yeah,
The food was incredible.
we were eating well. Okay, so Gertie, I mean, so obviously this entire season has been an emotional roller coaster that we've been on with you. I'm sure this is not how you thought the season was going to go for you when it started filming. We've seen you get your diagnosis, go through treatment, several surgeries. I guess my first question is like, you know, what did you think this season was going to look like for you before, like when it started? Because you obviously had life plans that were curtailed because of everything that went on with your health. What did those two things look like differently to you?
Well, I went into filming. I already had known that, about one of the two diagnoses. There's an invasive and there's a non-invasive cancer. So the week before is when it was official that I had the invasive and that we had to start to talk about treatment. So the shock value was intense, but I still went into it like, you know what? I'm going to share. I'm going to let the girls know. I'm going to gather them at my own time. So and then we're just going to make this an educational thing while I go through treatment. I'm going to share it all, and it's going to be beautiful. And my viewers are going to be educated and yada, yada, yada. And then came the curveball.
Right.
Never in my mind, stupid Gertie, did I think that blind spot that I was going to have a questionable, have it questioned, have it gossiped, gossiped. And it's just that it became a storyline. And I'm like, no, it's not a storyline. This is my story. This is my life. So it was a real interesting season. I don't regret a thing, but quite shocking the way that it all unfolded for everyone to see.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. But I also wanted to check in. Obviously, everyone was so relieved to hear at BravoCon that you are cancer free. And I'm just curious, like, I guess once you get that kind of official, okay, you are cancer free, do you start to try to put your day-to-day life back together that it was like before, or is there a totally new normal for you? What does that look like?
It's a different normal, and I'm still trying to adjust to it because things happen, right? Life happens, your perspective happen, and this is Guerdy 2.0, so I'm not thinking the same way anymore. It's very different. So for me, it in a sense, I slowed way down on weddings. Literally, I have no weddings coming up just because I had to put that on pause to take care of me before I took care of others. And then secondly, I wake up now just seeing, how do you feel? Like, do you feel like getting up? And I pace myself and I listen to my body. And I meditate now more, and I go for walks. So I start with physical activity, with Russell. Sometimes we have different versions of the activity that we do, but we love to go walking, running, doing that whole thing, and just getting me good. And then I'm able to do good, so you feel good, you do good. Yeah.
So it's an energy thing, kind of a lot of days. It's like, where do I stand energy wise?
Yeah. And there are obviously deadlines. I do a lot of collaborations now. I'm very involved in a lot of, cancer related foundations and industry. So I'm doing a lot of, online social media collabos, and I love it. So now my day-to-day looks different. It's more fun, to be honest, and it's less stressful.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so let's get into what we were alluding to before. Let's talk about Larsa. She spread your news to the rest of the group, even though you asked her not to.
Yeah.
You said you have no regrets, but do you regret telling her first, or her being one of the first ones?
It was not even a planned thing at all. It was just that we had this luncheon to clarify where we stood as friends. And I explained to her exactly why I thought she was the fakest. And you don't see the details of that lunch, but there's a 40-minute lunch where we go back and forth. And then towards the end, as we're making up, and she's just kind of like testing me, like, you're gonna cry, and don't stop crying. And it was kind of like, I have cancer. Like, you see what I'm saying? So the intent of that luncheon was not to tell her I had cancer. It was to put perspective into our relationship. And when you start a luncheon and the person says, you're not going to cry, are you? Nothing good is going to come out of it. So I was already on my way out, checked out of that conversation. And it got me emotionally, stressed. And I blurted it out. And when I did, I didn't regret it, because I'm like, you know what? This is a way for us to start fresh. And now that when I say
what test, you're going through.
I was testing her. It was in a way to say, I'm extending this trusted value to you, because now I want you to see that I do consider you back in my life as a friend. She would never have been the fourth person if I had calculated it properly, but I did it. So it was just kind of like one of those things. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, okay, fine. I told her, but let's consider this a test of our friendship. And then she went and did what she did.
Right.
And then I'm like, damn, stupid me. I shouldn't be surprised. This is what I'm dealing with. When people show you who you are, believe them.
Sure. And since then, I think there's been various kind of ways that she has explained why she did, or she's tried to, on the show, but also in the media. I've seen different things given. And, I guess.
Was it with you recently? Was she with you recently?
No, I interviewed Larsa at the beginning of this season, but I had Nicole a couple weeks ago. And I talked to Nicole about it, and I was like, I guess the reason that Larsa has given is like, she thought that she had agreed not to say it to the media, not necessarily the rest of the group. Yeah. And I guess Nicole is basically like, if it seems like she didn't have like ill intent by spreading it to the rest of the group, but to me, or I guess to a lot of people, it's like, she just hasn't really fully apologized for what she did, basically. Where do you stand after you sort of watch some of the stuff back on the show, seeing some of the stuff in the media? How has any of that affected how you think about it?
So mind you that I found out that she told two strangers and then the girls, and then, went on to have bubbly, and have the party for Marcus's 5-day, exodus. And so I'm looking at it like, wow, all this time until I watched that episode, the girls, that were there at her party where she told them, they were like, oh no, she meant well. No, really, honestly, she was so stressed. And I'm like, okay, benefit of the doubt. So that's how I'm able to move on into, continuing, hanging around her. I would go to Mexico, you see us good, the whole thing. And then it wasn't until I watched the whole episode, I'm like, wait, where is she meant well, she's so concerned about you. She really wasn't. It was a 2-minute, I'm stressed, Gertie has cancer, oh my God, and what am I going to wear? It was very, very lowbrow what she did. And I don't think she understands the severity of it, the delicacy of the actual matter and how it affected me. So it became a her thing, and her stress, and it wasn't her fault. I never, at the luncheon, if you notice, I never mentioned the media. I said to her, I'm not ready to tell the girls. You're actually the fourth person I'm telling. Please keep it in confidence until I'm ready to. She jokes about, oh, I'm going to run into TMZ. So how she spun it in her head about what she thought I meant is beyond. But the fact that at the end of the day, it's like, I know what I said. You saw the clip. You would think that her spin on social media would be like, hey, Gertie is not ready to receive me right now, but I know I watch it back. I feel horrible, and I'll be patient until we can have that conversation.
But you haven't gotten that. Right.
So you'll see at the reunion how it goes down. Yeah. And a lot of words were exchanged, and I made myself very, very, very clear.
Did you get your apology?
You will have to watch and see.
Okay.
Watch and see.
Okay. Because I will say, in last night's episode where you're in Mexico City, you guys go to that church. I thought that church scene is one of the most powerful, profound scenes that we've seen on Housewives in a very long time, any franchise. Yeah. I thought it was done really well. You're both sitting there praying, getting emotional, and she puts her arm around you. You kind of lean into her, and it's a very unlikely moment, but it was beautiful. And so it was sort of like, oh, I as a viewer, I was like, I was like, oh my God, why can't this be the moment to move forward? Why can't this just be,
Oh, keep watching, darling. Keep watching.
Okay. I will.
Oh boy. The viewers are going to be stunned. It's a roller coaster with her and I. And by the way, I never had an issue with Larsa ever. And also, by the way, the beginning of this whole who's the fakest of them all, I mean, is it a lie? Where's the lie? Can you? Is the lie here? Where's the
Gertie.
looking for the lie? Where is
Gertie.
the lie? So the first thing is, where's the lie physically, right? And it's okay. It's fine. You are a different person before and after. We understand. But I had layers in which I meant also you have been fake to me because of
Mm,
this, that. At the reunion, I explained exactly what she did and what she confessed to as to why I called her the fakest. So you're gonna
okay.
see some clarification because I don't come for no one unless it come for me first. And I'm telling you
Listen.
right now, receipts, of
Okay.
course.
I'm excited to see that moment.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you, Gertie, about just continuing to film some of these more intense group scenes and go on the
Mm-hmm.
trips as you were going through all of this because you held up so well, but then there were a couple moments where it clearly became too much for you. And I'm just curious
Yeah.
how is it too much? Was it like a mental exhaustion thing? Was it a physical thing? Was it kind of all of the above?
Well, that's a good question because stress to me, like people are like, "Oh my gosh, she's so fragile." Gertie, sit down. Are you okay? Oh, don't get her
Right.
stressed. You don't get cancer from stress. Number one, okay, Google it. Number two, this is social stress. So it's one of those things where, like, after it's one and done. You argue with someone. To me, I go home, I decompress, and I'm good. So this is not like work stress where it's like, oh my god, the deadline, I screwed up, I did this. So this is one of those things where I go to these events trying to get away from the doctor's appointment, the phone calls, the injections, and all that stuff. And then I'm like, I want to have a good time. Oh God, darn
Right.
it! You guys are doing this. I could have been home doing that. So it's one of those things where, like, perspective. Remember that you have it good. Remember to appreciate each other and let benefit of the doubt. Let it go. Let it go. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to spread the freaking gospel, man. They won't
Right.
let me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's this weird push and pull of like being
Yes.
sensitive to what you are going through and that,
Yeah.
these little pettier arguments don't
Yeah.
mean enough when as anything compared to what you're going through.
Right.
But also it's like I guess they got to keep the drama going on for the group. So it's this
Yeah.
weird push and pull, right? And like I can
Exactly.
totally see how it would just be like exhausting just like even just be sitting there.
Yeah, and I do want to say that the girls, and again, it's a show. Everything's compressed.
Right.
They have been there for me.
It seems that way.
Seven, seven,
Yes.
7 of them. No, 7 of them.
Okay.
7 of them have been there for me consistently, wholeheartedly, and really checked in. Like, how are you? But for real, Gertie. And then there's another, the 2 others that you will see at the reunion. Because boy, does it get feisty! It gets feisty, and uh, alliances change, things change, everything's changed. People are just kind of seeing the things for what they really are, and me calling it out at the reunion and making everyone confirm or deny what they feel about certain situations. Yeah.
So we'll see a lot of the group dynamic switch up at the reunion, you're saying?
Oh yes, you'll be very surprised. Very surprised.
Really?
Oh
Yeah.
yes.
I'm guessing that are the two do their names start with L? Is that what you're alluding to?
One of them does. The other one you
Okay.
have to watch and see, honey.
Okay. I'm
Mm-hmm,
interested. I'm
mm-hmm.
interested.
But I think that if you watch the show, you can kind of get a sense of, like, okay, this person is like, we call them mascot, the mascot, and so you'll see the mascot at the reunion, and we'll.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I mentioned Nicole earlier, Gertie, and she found herself at the center of this drama on the show at the Mother's Day luncheon, and where Anna showed up. And we saw Alexia and Marisol really put a lot of the blame on her instead of Adriana, who is the person that brought Anna and was
yes.
kind of in contact with her. What did you make of how that all played out as one of Nicole's best friends?
Well, you saw that. I'm like, I put them in their place. I had to walk out, and I'm like, you guys make this thing right. This is ridiculous. Nicole had nothing to do with it. Yes, she confirmed that the invitee could be invited. Okay, so this is like a second layer invitation. Adriana invited Anna. Anna asked Nicole, I was invited. Is it okay if I come? Nicole has no issues with her. She doesn't even know the backstory between all these girls. And she's like, yeah, sure. It's been 10 years. And at the reunion, you will see the sequence of communication, which leads Nicole to believe like everything's great.
Right.
And then at the reunion, they're trying to spin it like, no, no, no. So it's a lot of clarification at the reunion. However, I don't know if Alexia and Marisol walked away saying, okay, Nicole's a saint. And I still don't understand why, but
Okay.
you'll have to, it's just, it's a
Do you,
shit show.
Let me ask you this, because Nicole said that she was not aware of the stuff with Anna and what she said about Alexia and Maris or about Marisol more. Were you aware of what she had said before that luncheon?
Well, at the lunch at Marisol's event, you know, I know that there was a podcast with Velvet Rope, I think, where Anna's on the podcast saying, or her daughter says actually, Marisol is like a walking corpse. That's what the words are. Kiki saw the podcast, but the lost in translation, she goes into Marisol and says, she calls you like she wishes you were like dead or something like that. And that's where it's like, wait,
what is
happening? And also she apparently, one of them questioned Steve, Marisol's husband's sexuality. And that's what, and I can understand that. Of course, I mean, I wouldn't want someone to gossip about my husband. Absolutely not.
But so, did you know about that before the luncheon?
No, I didn't know about
so that was after.
So I was kind of like, that's not nice. But is it detrimental and like the world's gonna shake? And I don't know. That's But
what do you think the issue is between Marisol, Alexia, and Nicole? Like, I feel like they can never really fully get on the same ground.
I just don't even. It never started on the right playing field because of the whole "who do you trust the least" game and the Larsa, the baby and the whole thing that happened with that. So it never got started right. And I think people have egos and then they get into their feelings and it's I'm going to show you. So there's a layer of like, we need to prove that she's not trustworthy or we need to prove that she has bad intent. And I don't know how they can come back to the middle. But again, to me, it's always like that benefit of the doubt. Unless it's blatantly like, you did this. Like, I have a reason to argue with Larsa. Everyone can confirm that. With them, there's a lot of gray areas. And I feel like they should just kind of like wipe the board clean and start writing with a black marker.
Also, Gertie, the other kind of drama I want to ask about one of your friends is you and Kiki continue to get closer over the years. And I love your friendship so much. And she had a big blow up with Lisa on this past episode on the gondola. And what's interesting about that moment to me is that I'm guessing if you were in the moment, you weren't really sure that it was like about a bigger, or they both were thinking about bigger things sort of as they were arguing about like feeding the dogs or throwing the juice box. But it was actually Lisa just signed some divorce papers and Kiki was offended by some of the comments they were making because of how she grew up. How were you thinking about that fight in the moment? And then how is, I guess, watching the show back or talking to Kiki about it change your perspective on it?
Very good question. That's exactly right. When you're in the middle of the moment, I'm like, well, it's why is she getting so mad? I didn't understand the reaction. But Kiki, all she said, everyone was telling Lisa, sit down. I'm next to Lisa. I'm like, no, don't just sit down. And she didn't listen. And Kiki says it, and all of a sudden it's like, well, you. So it was a very kind of like scapegoat.
She kind of snapped. Right. Totally.
Like scapegoat behavior to say, I'm going to just pick on you and tell you off because I think I can. And when she saw Kiki was not having it today, Satan, she tested her. Kiki got up, threw a little juice box, and it's kind of like the fight of the juice box. Who knew that juice box would be used as a weapon of mass destruction? So it was really interesting. But I only learned later when and I knew Kiki's story because I knew her before the show. She of course, my friend, and so I already knew that there was a new instance about it that I knew it had to do with her growing up. And she does say like, where I grow up, like this is an issue, whatever. And then we get to learn really deeply what it is. So on next week's episode, you will see how they
good
go through that.
I hope they can,
and it gets more intense before it gets better. It gets
really more intense. I hope that I'm glad to hear that it gets better in some respects because it feels like on both sides there's an understandable different perspective they weren't seeing again in that sort of tunnel vision of the moment, right, on that boat.
100%. It gets intense next week. Yes.
Okay. Oh my God, there's a lot going on this Mexico trip. I have to say, there's the Julia element, which is really heartbreaking to see some of these moments. So it's wow.
And I'm next to her crying as well because I understand her feeling, and my past with my brother and his nieces. Yep. So I see babies that are not doing well, and we got an issue, and we didn't know about this, so we just kind of like the wind shifts. It was the most bizarre thing. The wind shifts, and we're like, oh, it's getting cloudy, and then we turn. It's like, what's happening? We couldn't understand what was going on.
I'm calling on Real Housewives of New York back in the day. They had the boat ride from hell. This is the gondola ride from hell. So that's what I'm calling it.
It's trendy, baby. Make it trend. That was some crazy stuff. And next week is when you see. I'm gonna call it the beautiful, horrific symphony. I'm gonna call it that, and you will see what I mean. And symphony about music and the whole compilation of that. It's intense. Next week is must-see TV in the worst and best way.
Listen, that's how we like our housewives. Okay, so Gertie, I'm going to ask you a couple of things about the
Okay.
reunion that are just quick question. Just give me a name of who kind of falls into that category.
Okay.
Who does the most apologizing?
Larsa, I guess ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
screams the most?
Ah, all of us. Winner takes all of us. Eunice Miami. We can't
Who,
help it.
right. Who cries the most?
Me. Yes. And Lisa. Yeah.
Okay. Who is in the hot seat the most?
Larsa.
Okay. And who changed your mind the most?
Alexia.
Really? Okay.
Yes. Yes, Alexia.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then Andy Cohen posted on his Instagram story during his lunch break that he could hear two women fighting.
Uh-huh.
Were you one of those people?
No.
Okay, so you were not involved in
But
the hallway
apparently
fight.
my name was being called, so someone had my back, honey. And I
Okay,
put
so
that
you
message.
were
So
maybe a factor in the fight, but you were not one of the people yelling in the
I
hallway.
was not one of the
Do
people
you
yelling,
know
but
who was yelling in the
I wanted
hallway?
to go out that door and just jump right in too. And then something said, Gertie, no, just save it for the cameras on the chair. The chair, baby. You gotta tell it like it is on the
Okay.
chair. So I'm like, nope.
Okay. Good
Mm-hmm.
strategy. And then Gertie, I mean, just in general, this has been I feel like every season since the Miami reboot, this is our third one back. They've all been banner seasons to me. They've all been amazing seasons of Housewives. I mean, and you film the reunion, we have more to see on the actual show, but where does the group stand right now? And what does the future look like for this group in terms of
It's
going forward?
it's very uncertain in a way where it's like there's attempt to kind of in some relationships like okay we'll see or there's apologies but it's really real so people are petty, people are sensitive, and people are just very in their feelings. And so it's very interesting because I walked out of there not even knowing myself what's going to happen. So there is some resolve for sure. There's
Good.
steps taking forward for sure. The viewers will be happy, I think, with the overall outcome, but definitely a lot to desire for next season, future seasons ahead, for
Okay.
sure. A lot
Okay.
of
Yeah.
things that are like questionable. Like I can't wait to see what's going to happen with that or who and what. It's a lot.
Right. Because to me, it's like Housewives, part of the thing is conflict resolution, right? So it's like, but some of these things, it's like, how do you move forward with some of this stuff? It's hard to wrap your mind around it, I'm sure, in your
Absolutely.
position.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Gertie, I always love chatting with you. I love seeing you so healthy and happy and just
Thank
figuring out
you.
what your day-to-day life looks like going forward. It seems like you're at peace with sort of what this new normal is for you. And
Yeah.
again, I just always love chatting with you.
I love it. And I love the bookcases.
Oh,
Approved,
thank
approved
you.
across the board, honey.
Thank you
Love
so
it.
much. Color coded, baby.
Gorgeous. I do the same with my closet.
Love
Another
it.
time I'll give you a tour.
Oh my God, yes. Gertie, thank you so much. I'm excited to see the rest of the season, the reunion. It sounds like we're in for some great TV. So I love
Thank
you
you so
guys. Yep.
much.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
I want to gab.